really shook the conscience of people, and people started reacting in a very sharp manner, which we had never seen and heard. Because, as part of women's movement for almost 4 decades, I've never had that experience that when we mobilizing on women's issues, we will get not only, maybe 500 women, 1,000 women, but never this kind of a crowd in men, women, and all young girls and boys from different parts of the city. Anyway, so that's the scene one. And then, of course, that continued for 4 days. And we all know that how government kept totally silent on the issue. Fortunately, I had the friend who used to be from JNU working as press advisor to Prime Minister. We kept insisting that Prime Minister should make a statement, but as it happens, Prime Minister, they said no. Prime Minister doesn't make statement on a rape case. So anyway, so all that, then the lathi charge. Every day we went back to India Gate, and we all were with full strength fighting. So that concluded in, finally arrest of those people. And also it concluded in Nirbhaya getting, Jyoti Pandey getting very, very sick. And then she was transferred to Singapore. And then, of course, she lost her life. But in this whole thing, there was no choice in a democratic system when, this kind of a thing, which is really mobilized. Every village had meeting everywhere in the country. Then the Verma Commission was set up. And that's where our story for today starts. Or you can say our analysis of the whole situation starts. Verma Commission really institutionalized a very, very democratic process, because Justice Verma himself, as we knew him very well, and he had come to many of such programs of civil society, including our own institutions programs. He had 3 daughters. He always respected this whole thing. And he himself was very shaken by this whole thing. And then the 3-member commission was set up. And then we all were invited with the suggestions. Now, the whole issue at that time was, the stake was that how come that such people in such a big city cross so many booths, and what is it that the police could not really act, number one. So what was police's that is why first time ever 166 was introduced, and where the Burma Commission said that you have to punish police for dereliction of their duty. Then second thing was that how do we really look at rape, and that is why so many complications come up. And then the definition was enlarged of the rape, and quantum of punishment, because so many rapists got caught. And as you know, at Dhola Kuan, there was another case in Andhra where the rapists were released on bail and they went back and again committed the same crime. So the quantum of punishment was also defined and given by, I think all this, I won't take away from Dr. Vibhuti Patel, who's really very, well-versed with all this. And also she has been extremely engaged with gender studies, and whether it is economics, whether it is trade, whether it is, foreign policy, or any aspect of how to get gender equality and women's empowerment, and how to analyze and how to look at every single system in our country with gender lens. I think nobody else does as effectively and as strongly as Dr. Professor Vibhuti Patel. So I'm very, very happy that, today you are discussing this whole issue. So Verma Commission made a huge shift in definition, in quantum of punishment. And also at some point of time, we insisted as women's groups that rape is not only happening outside or inside, or, it's also happening in people's bedrooms, in marriage. But of course, Vermaji always told me, Ranjana Kumari, you are over enthusiastic. In fact, he said that even in an NDTV interview, that, she was insisting, and we knew that this will not be acceptable. And certainly this was not acceptable to the parliament. Lot of the recommendations were diluted finally. And then some of them were under the pressure from the women's organizations and the movement and people's movement, I would say, that they were all accepted and passed. So Verma Commission changed the definition, quantum of punishment, fixed the responsibility of the police, and also made the rape as a real serious crime. But just one more point I want to add here, as someone who's really introducing the subject, should not be taking so much time. But what is very important, जो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण इसमें हुआ कि बाद में दो बातें हुई. एक तो इतना vast definition हम लोग भी उस समय नहीं समझ रहे थे, लेकिन बहुत ही डेफिनेशन का जो दायरा था वो बहुत बढ़ा दिया गया. और दूसरी बात जो हुई वो ये कि जो पनिशमेंट है, क्योंकि रेप रुका नहीं, और रेप जिस तरह के पेट्रियार्कल पावर रिलेशंस और क्राइम का हिस्सा है, और उसमें जिस तरह से हमारे जो पूरा हमारा एक रेप कल्चर बनाने में हमारे देश के पॉलिटिशियंस ने, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स ने, इम्पोर्टेंट फंक्शनरीज ने रोल प्ले किया इतने दिनों में, कि औरतों को ही दोष देना, उनको ही डॉक में खड़ा करना कि इट हैपेंस टू यू बिकॉज हु यू आर एंड व्हाट यू डिड. It doesn't happen to you because somebody else is not really, sensible, or somebody is really, and these criminals are at large. So in that sense, it was also politicized later, the Verma Commission recommendation. And the quantum of punishment, everybody started talking about capital punishment. Hang them, hang them. If you will hang them, then this. And today we used to caution, hanging is not very easy. To establish in highest possible, Supreme Court at the highest possible level. And Chhavla, all the three rapists were let go because there was not two things. There was not, rarest of the rare crime, and also that it was not proof beyond doubt. अब ये दोनों चीजें आसान नहीं हैं किसी भी सर्कमस्टांसेस में, और इसकी वजह से जो पॉलिटिसाइजेशन फांसी दो पर हुआ, उसकी वजह से आज ना सिर्फ रेपिस्ट को फांसी नहीं हुई, हो रही है, सिर्फ कहीं ना कहीं कंक्लूसिव जस्टिस वर्मा कमीशन के बाद निर्भया को मिला कि उसके क्रिमिनल्स को फांसी हुई, ना तो फांसी भी नहीं हो रही, और जो क्राइम है वो और ज्यादा हीनस और बहुत ज्यादा, एक तरह से देखा जाए तो लड़कियों की तो जिंदगी ही अब ना सिर्फ रेप हो रहा है, बल्कि उनके साथ हर तरह का सेक्सुअल क्राइम हो रहा है, शरीर में औजाना, उनको काटना, उनके हमारे सामने आई है. तो वर्मा कमीशन एक लैंडमार्क कमीशन था, एक लैंडमार्क उस समय हुआ. अब मैं उसके बारे में आग्रह करूंगी डॉक्टर विभूति, प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर विभूति पटेल से कि वो अपने. यस विभूति.
Good evening, friends. Yeah. Should I go ahead? बोलना चाहिए? Hello. 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 बोलिए. हाँ.
Good evening, ma'am. Sudhanshu Pandey.
हाँ, बोलिए. So,
Yes,
good evening, friends.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Ranjana Kumari. Yeah. Hello.
आपकी आवाज एकदम साफ
आ रही है? हेलो, मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, हमें सुनाई दे रहा है विभूति.
अच्छा, ओके. हाँ. सो हाँ, और मैं कौन सी भाषा में बोलूं? हेलो,
अंग्रेजी में बोलिए.
अंग्रेजी में, ठीक है. सो गुड इवनिंग फ्रेंड्स. Dr. Ranjana Kumari has already set the tone for today's discussion. As you know that Verma Commission recommendations were landmark, but it's very important to understand the historical background of this whole anti-rape agitation. We all know that it was in 1980 that Supreme Court gave such a misogynist and insensitive judgment in case of a young tribal woman who was raped by uniformed policeman in the police station, and the judgment enraged a whole lot of people, and 4 lawyers of Delhi University, they challenged, they wrote an open letter to Supreme Court of India. In response to that, we had a massive anti-rape movement where women from all walks of life, rural, urban, tribal women, women in the cities, all of them, they came out and new women's organizations, they emerged. They call themselves women's rights, human rights organization. And from 1980 to 2012, 32 years of collective efforts by the women's rights organization that provided support to women survivor of violence, women victim of violence. Earlier, they were called victim, but then we know that when women are fighting, even in spite of such horrendous and barbaric crime, they are fighting for their rights. They knock at the doors of the legal system. They approach the women's organization, and it was everything got culminated in 2012 when Justice Verma Commission was reported. Dr. Ranjana Kumari has told us that under what circumstances this commission was established just week after the Nirbhaya gang rape case, and that whole week, women's organizations in Delhi, youth organizations, students in Delhi, in the midst of extreme cold of December, they all were organizing candlelight vigils, and I think Ranjana Kumari said that how they galvanized everyone into action, and the system gave up its bureaucratic lethargy. Political bodies and political parties, they also got a shock therapy. And we also saw that in this movement, the 2012 movement was aided by social media. So whatever was happening in Delhi immediately reached to other cities and every parts of through Twitter and Facebook. So I think that also played a very important role, and spontaneous protests started happening. I remember in the city of Mumbai, we would just get a Twitter message or a Facebook message that gather in this particular place. Every day they were protesting, and they were the only central demand, as Dr. Ranjana Kumari also said, that castrate the rapist and capital punishment. And we said that's not the solution. I will deliberate upon it in future in the coming slides. So the committee members of Verma Committee Commission were ex-Solicitor General, also Justice Laila Sheikh, and also his student, Mr. Gopal, he was also the member. 3-member committee was there. It was voluntarily working. They were operating only from that lawyer's office. More than 18,000 citizens of our country and organization, they submitted the recommendation, and they also, Verma Commission came up with a charter. It is known as a charter for women's freedom and women's equality. And this charter was very important in terms of it reiterated the constitutional guarantee for justiciability of the various rights that Constitution is guaranteed, and also India's commitment to the International Covenant on Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and also International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So the first aspect of this charter, and Verma Commission report is easily downloadable. It is more than 623 pages. It's a huge thing. But what is summarized of that report is in this charter. And the first aspect of this charter talks about every woman shall be entitled to respect for her life and bodily integrity, right to dignity inherent in human being, and also she should be respected as a person, independent person. She should have a right to express and experience complete sexual autonomy. The question of consent is also deliberated in this report, and women should be protected. It is still in the perspective of protection and rescue and rehabilitation. That is the overarching concern in this Verma Commission report, and it also talks about accessibility of services for information, redressal, rehabilitation, and reparation of every woman being victim of violence. Second aspect, part 2 of this charter is about democratic and civil rights. It talks about that every woman should have a right to participative governance through participation without discrimination. Then every woman should have a freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, religion, and belief. And it also talks about that person's religion or belief in worship, observance, practice, teaching, ideas, and opinions of her own choosing, either individually or in community with others, and both in public and private life. Another thing very important is the right to freedom of expression. including freedom to seek, receive, and impart information. And every woman has a right to freedom of peaceful assembly and right to freedom of association. Part 3 of the Verma Commission report and the Declaration, Women's Charter for Independence and Freedom, is that right to equality. No woman shall be unfairly discriminated on ground of gender. And all the different aspects, different walks of life and different fields in life, women cannot be cannot be excluded. She can't be prevented from inheriting family property. She had a right to education and social welfare, no discrimination on the ground of pregnancy, and every woman shall have a freedom to marry any person of her choice. So recently, the whole thing which is going on, and Maharashtra is going to now, they have said that they are going to monitor each and every inter-religious marriage. So this kind of thing, Verma Commission report doesn't allow. It abhors it, in fact. So that is very third very important aspect of the report is part 4 is about right to secure spaces. Every woman has a right to equal access to housing and shelter, to acceptable living conditions in a healthy environment, and marital status has her marital status has access to adequate housing and shelter, and every woman should have access to public transport facilities without fear of risk of violation of her dignity. What happened to Nirbhaya in a moving train should never happen, and any form of teasing or molestation or stalking or sexual violence would be punished severely. Now, part 5 of this charter talks about special protections for elderly women, for women with disability, that they also should not face any form of violence, including sexual abuse. We all know that recent data shows that persons with disability, women with disability, are 3 times more prone to sexual violence. In fact, there is a Rising Flame, is an organization of women with disability. They have come up with so many, they provide support to women with disability, and they have come up with some horrible and very, very gruesome violence that they have to experience. Part 6 of Verma Commission's charter talks about women below poverty line. So it is an intersectional approach that even women, heads of the families, including women from marginalized population group, must be able to fulfill their special physical, economic, and social needs. And every pregnant and nursing women and women in detention must be provided with environment which is suitable to their condition and should be guaranteed right to be treated with dignity. So even when a woman is labeled as a criminal and a woman is in prison, she cannot be violated. So this is very important. And how women's movement responded. When Verma Commission invited women's organization, the collective wisdom of the women's movement and the human rights movement, it started with the foregrounding interlinkages between everyday violence that we are experiencing. Dr. Ranjana Kumari also told us that everyday violence that happens in the family, in the community, in the society, and the harassment faced by all women and girls, and the context of increased vulnerability where such forms of violence are exacerbated. If 92% of women are in the informal sector, and according to Arjun Sen Gupta committee report, they have to manage their life with 20 rupees per day. So you can imagine the economic vulnerability that these women have. So there are structures and systems which also breed and perpetuate violence. So that is also being taken into consideration by the women's movement. And the increased vulnerability is caused due to A, identity of victim and survivors, such as physically and mentally challenged women and girls, Dalit girls, as you know that in case of Priyanka Bhutmange, what was it? She was just working in her field. The vested interest of her village wanted to grab her land. And so many Dalit women are currently witch hunted mainly because of the land grab, because land has become a prized possession, even in the rural and tribal areas. And she was paraded naked. Her mother was paraded naked. She was very brutally raped, gang raped, and she was killed and murdered. And after that, we had a massive women movement by Dalit youth, mostly Dalit girls and women throughout the state. And finally, the FIR was registered. Same thing happens with the Adivasi sex workers, members of denotified group who were earlier British called them criminal tribe, and now the women from those communities, they also face tremendous sexual violence by the police and by the vested interests. Religious and linguistic minorities, as well as the members of LGBTQIA plus community. Second aspect is special context, such as custodial situation. When you are a patient in the hospital, when you are a inmate in a shelter home, or when you are a prisoner or you are in a custody of the police. In such custodial situation, the woman is totally powerless. And as it happened in case of Mathura. Mathura was a teenage girl who police they got hold of her after the FIR by her brother, and then she was raped in the police station throughout the night, and all the villagers were outside, they were screaming. Militarization, communal violence, caste-based violence, and other contexts of mass crimes where perpetrators enjoy both de facto and de jure impunity. So I think that is a very important concern that we have in the women's movement. Another very response that women's movement gave in response to Verma Commission's appeal for suggestion and recommendation that we should have a multi-pronged approach to combat sexual violence. One, amendments in the laws. Yes, Indian Evidence Act had to be amended because it was totally focusing on the penile penetration, while sexual violence happens in a variety of ways. So what we need is the law should be substantive, evidentiary, and procedural. Second is that ways in which law should be effectively implemented, including functioning of police and judiciary, accountability for dereliction of duty by the public servants, and introducing transparent process of inquiry. Third one is a protection of rights of victim and the survivors before and during and after trial, including issues of reparative justice. Currently, what we are seeing that after, as Dr. Ranjana Kumari said, that culprits of Nirbhaya were given capital punishment. But after that, what are we seeing? We are seeing that culprits, they completely, they very, very systematically destroy the evidences, and and so many times the witnesses turn hostile. We saw recently so many rapists have been scot-free. Even after imprisonment, they were freed mainly because the witness turned hostile. Working at the preventive level and addressing the root cause for violence against women and girls and the patriarchal and misogynist attitudes that exist in all sections of Indian society. So whether they are a Honey Singh song, or whether way Bollywood glorifies stalking, or the kind of recently one song, extremely objectionable line it has. And it has got hits of more than 20 lakh people. Okay, so that is how we perpetuate the rape culture. Those who are actually not doing rape, they are getting vicarious pleasure by listening to this kind of songs. XX and XXX pornography, cheapest literature, cheapest any material on perverted sex is available for 2 rupees. You can upload it on your mobile. Any panwala would do that. So this is also we need to address. Enhancing aspects of good governance, ensuring efficient and transparent functioning of democratic institutions, eradicating corruption among government departments through a series of incentives, disincentives, and administrative actions, as in case of Priyanka Bhutmange. A to Z, everybody was corrupt. And same thing when a tribal woman in Gujarat, she was Gunta Ben, when she was raped. From the lowest level till the magistrate level, everyone, they hushed up the case. It was finally when the women's organization had a state level massive women's movement, then Gunta Ben managed to get justice, and all the 12 rapists who had raped her and hanged her naked on the tree. She did not die, but she was extremely injured. Her bodily injuries were extremely high. She had eyewitness accounts also, but the corrupt system did not respond. So corruption within the police force, hospitals, transport authorities, and various government departments duty bound, they are also very important issues that need to be addressed. Provision of services and infrastructure facilities that would enhance safety for women and girls. For example, safe, efficient, and cheap modes of transport and well-lit roads. We know that all of us know that after Nirbhaya tragedy in 2012, suddenly India's work participation rate went drastically down. In the year 2000, we had 40% work participation rate. In 2013, we had 37% to 34% work participation rate. From that, within just 4 years of time, from 2013 to 2017, it became 27%. And currently, according to CMI data, only 19% women in the workforce, in the labor force, they are working. There is a tremendous, and the major problem is mobility. From home to workplace, there is no safety for women. Other social, economic, and cultural processes by which women and girls can be empowered and perpetrators deterred or discouraged from committing violent acts. So I think the community life, why suddenly we are seeing that all cities, you hardly see anybody on the road. There are only people in two-wheelers and three-wheelers and four-wheelers. Footpaths have been removed in so many cities after cities. They have removed footpaths. So there are no pedestrian walking. There is no activity happening on the road. So in these lonely roads, it is more insecure for elderly people, for people with disability, for children, and for women. So I think we need to when we talk about the smart city, I think smart cities are those which are safe city. So we need to think about town planning also, not only in terms of flyovers and bridges and CCTV cameras, but the human element is extremely important. Another very important concern that the women's movement has shown is that sexual crimes, they are the continuum of day-to-day misogyny, humiliation, degradation, and the sexual violence or sexual harassment that happens. When we talk about the sexual assault, like stripping, parading, mutilation, which are intended to sexually assault, degrade, and humiliate those who are targeted, I think that is why the need for a broader definition, which the Verma Commission also recommended. Aggravated sexual assault when happens that whenever there is a conflict, caste riots or communal riots based on community, ethnicity, caste, religion, or language, as well as physical and mental disability of victim, which merits special recognition. Sexual offenses and harassment like public stripping, what happened to Soni Sori, or what happened to or parading women who are active in the tribal movement, or who are active in the Dalit movement, or those who are active in the working class movement. That is that day to day, while women are commuting, groping and pinching and flashing is happening in such a massive scale. The girls start crying. Now they are targeting more and more schoolgirls, blackmailing via electronic media. So now we have a cybercrime is a major challenge that has been posed in the 21st century. Recognition of marital rape. Dr. Ranjana Kumari also said that this rape happened within bedroom, and this is one major defeat that we have had, because Verma Commission had also recommended, but our parliament did not allow. Gender neutrality, okay, it's important because the LGBTQIA movement has also said that what we need is a gender neutral sexual violence act, because men, transgender communities, and transsexual victims, they also need justice. Now we have another law, trans persons protection of rights bill, but that has provided only for 2 years of punishment, or a rigorous punishment for rape of trans person. But that is totally unjust, because rape is a rape is a rape. Pain is and the bodily integrity is violated of a person. So that should be same kind of punishment should be given even when the trans person is violated, even a sex worker is violated. The most controversial issue that we have currently is the age of consent. That what do you consider whether there are so many young boys and girls who fall in love? It's a consensual relationship, but always the framework of our legal system is such. Even the Juvenile Justice Act talks about protecting the girl, save the girl child. Girl has to be protected while the boy is in conflict with law. So we criminalize the boy, teenage boy, even when there is a mutually consensual relationship. So this is a very important problematic area that we have so far as the rape law is concerned. And other thing is that the impunity to the people in the government offices, like the Arms People Special Power Act, now it has been scrapped. But when the people in power or people in important state positions, if there are accusations against that, are they immune, or they should also be tried? Addressing the social objective, addressing issues of autonomous functioning of police force, very important, because every time such sexual violence takes place, issues get politicized and they have to work under tremendous political pressure. We need to create the standard operative procedures. Now, organizations like SEHAT or so many one-stop crisis centers, they have come up with the standard operative procedures, how the medical examination should be done. Most of the states are still continuing with the two-finger state, which is not required. It is outlawed now. You don't need to do victims examination like that. Circumstantial evidences should be given very important, great importance. Improper, biased, and shoddy investigation should not be done. They do more harm than helping the victim. Pro forma for medical examination of sexual assault victim, Ministry of Health and Home Affairs have also come up with, but most of the state governments are using the old pro forma, which generally focuses only on the victim. The accused has no accountability, that kind of, because focus is only on the per vaginal examination of a victim. Professional training for collecting medical legal evidences. Around 8 to 10 states have begun this thing, but still we have a long way to go. This kind of training have to be conducted by the government medical colleges and municipal medical colleges. Sensitive and humane treatment to victim and survivor, support services to victim survivor, and also exclusion of sanction for prosecution of public servants. That's very, and also creation of a one-stop crisis center. Why should a survivor of sexual assault should be running from a lawyer, from police station to lawyer's office to her shelter home? No, all the services should now come to one place. And now we have six states in our country who have started one-stop crisis center. In Maharashtra, they are hospital centered. In Andhra Pradesh, they are community centered, but it's very important. Witness protection, very important. Most of the time, we have seen in case of Kashmir also how the lawyer of a victim was also threatened. So witness protection is very important. Compensation. Several states have started compensation. We in Maharashtra, we have a Manodharya scheme, but in compensation to the survivor of violence, and especially in cases of POCSO, they have started, but the bureaucratic lethargy is such that funds are non-utilized. After Nirbhaya tragedy, Government of India, the Parliament passed a resolution to allocate 1,000 crore rupees per year to combat gender-based violence. Most of the states have not used that fund. Only 4 or 5 states have used 40 to 60% of the funds. Recently, we got the data that Nirbhaya fund has been used only for in Maharashtra, they diverted Nirbhaya fund to buy 23 vehicles for the MLAs. Can you imagine? This is the level of apathy or antipathy, you can say, so to combat sexual violence. Need for a humane police force, so that means gender sensitization programs on sexual violence have to be started. During 80s and 90s, we had them. Now, again, police academy has to be galvanized into action. And collection and compilation of data, that's very important. National Crime Records Bureau collects data on crimes against women, but what we need is a more detailing of the data, and also not only in big cities, but from all other from every part of the country. In terms of procedure and the trial, most important thing is that swift and certain prosecution is very important. Time-bound trials
Vibhuti,
go ahead.
Professor Vibhuti, I just wanted to know there is another speaker also there, or we can take another 5 minutes to conclude.
Yeah, in 5 minutes it will be over. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
So time-bound trials, victims, survivors, lawyers, and interpreters and translators are very important at whenever the trials take place, so that there is no miscommunication between what victim is saying and what the court proceedings are saying. Accountability of the prosecutors, in-camera trials only when the survivor or the victim demands. Witness protection, cross-examination has to be conducted in a humane way, and protection of human rights defenders. These are the demands. Now, the most controversial issue in this sexual violence is first that when we talk about the punishment, no to death penalty. Because punishment becomes stricter, the rate of conviction falls. That we have seen universally, that has been the experience. Death penalty embodies the idea of retribution, which is as violent as the offense. We also believe that state does not have a right to take away anyone's life. There are caste, religious, and class biases, and more privilege and people who enjoy political clout in society will engage highly professional legal services to escape from death penalty. So it is basically the people who are poor and who are at the margin of the society, they are the ones who get punished. Given the fact that overwhelming number of women are sexually assaulted by people known to them, if you see the data also, NCR data also shows that they are the accused or the culprit were known to the victim, often include near and distant family, friends, husband, workplace supervisors, partners. We believe that the punishment of death penalty for rape will further deter victim survivors to reporting the crime. There have been and are bound to be errors of judgment also. We have seen in so many people after 50 years, they get released because there was a wrong evidences were provided. We believe that death penalty becomes a tool in the hands of the state to further exert its power over its citizens, which we do not support. Sexual assault is not about second demand that emerged after Nirbhaya tragedy was the castration, chemical castration or a physical castration. We are against both physical and chemical castration because sexual assault is not about inability to control sexual urge or a desire, but about exercising power over victim, stemming from patriarchal values. Suggesting castration as a punishment for sexual assault is therefore based on an erroneous presumption of philosophy of rape. Even if it was argued that chemical castration would impair production of testosterone, which is linked to aggression, and aggression is an important component not only of sexual assault, but also other brutal forms of assault and murder that are non-sexual in nature. So there is no logic in privileging sexual assault for this form of punishment over other crimes that involve comparable amount of aggression. Castration doesn't guarantee non-penile forms of brutal assault, such as insertion of objects into the orifices of victim's body or forced nudity or mutilation of sexual organ will not happen. Castration, physical or chemical, voluntary or involuntary, violates the fundamental right to life and bodily integrity of a person concerned as guaranteed by Indian Constitution. So there is no empirical data indicating that castration deters the crime. At a practical level, since it involves administering injection to convicted persons every 3 months, how will police trace them once they are released? Or if they are not released and are kept in prison, what is the rationale behind castration anyway? Then another issue about punishment was that aggravated sexual assault. In cases of aggravated sexual assault, punishment should be life imprisonment with no remission. The sentences for custodial rape and sexual assault must be enhanced compared to sentences for civil rape and sexual assault to act as a deterrent for security officers misusing power they have derived from being officers of the state. We also believe that law should punish sexual assault with murder more strongly than without murder, so that the law doesn't provide an incentive for the perpetrators to kill the victim survivor of rape. Now, most important thing is that effective implementation of existing schemes for compensation and rehabilitation of sexual assault with a gender responsive budgeting, which is where we need funds, functions, and functionaries. Gender responsive budgeting must include but are not limited to victims compensation scheme brought about through a 2008 amendment to section 357A of the Criminal Procedure Code, as well as the National Commission for Women's Scheme for assistance and support services to victims of rape. Statutory recognition of comprehensive psychosocial support, care and treatment to the victim survivor. For the first time, the union budget this year for 2022-23 has allocated more than 740 crore rupees for the mental health and psychosocial support, which is mediated by the NIMHAS. So I think that is a progressive step. What we need, that biopsychosocial model of health, where biological concerns, the social determinants and the psychological issues, and the coping skills and strategies, they need to be focused on. These are very important documents, all on public domain. Justice Verma Commission's full report of 631 pages, which has 31 chapters. Justice Verma Committee Bill of Rights for Women, that is also there, and submission to Justice Verma Committee by the women's organizations, because that was all the suggestions of women's organizations were collected by Women's Research and Action Group in 2013 and were submitted to Justice Verma Committee. Thank you very much. This is in a nutshell, I think, the discourses that have happened both by the state and non-state actors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Vibhuti Patel. I think you really have given a most comprehensive presentation on that. Not only that this was a report which was just reflecting on one gruesome crime, but also was looking at the whole comprehensive way of looking at how society discriminates, what is the patriarchal framework within which this kind of a power relation exists, where men exercise power over women. It also had intersectional approach. So it did not only talk about women, but it's also talked about other sections of society and how really tribal, poor, and also LGBTQ and other communities are getting, really brutalized and also targeted. And also, of course, the whole collective wisdom of the women's movement went into. So that is why you can see such excellent, idea of how even for the punishment framework, for example, and also that the relationship between everyday violence and sexual assault, that was very well understood and really presented by the report. And also, the report looked at the structural and systemic inequality. ये नहीं कि खाली आप इस बात पर ध्यान दे रहे थे कि ये सिर्फ ये जो अगर गरीब लोग हैं, किसान लोग हैं, ट्राइबल लोग हैं, उन लोगों के बीच में जिस तरह से ये घटनाएं बढ़ी हैं इस बीच में, तो निश्चित तौर पर ये इंगित किया गया था वर्मा कमीशन की रिपोर्ट में। और जो एक मल्टी प्रोंग अप्रोच वर्मा कमीशन ने लिया था, उस अप्रोच के बारे में भी आपने कहा, जो कि बहुत ही सब्सटेंटिव रही है और पूरे सोशियो कल्चरल इथॉस के अंदर किस तरह से रेप कल्चर को प्रमोट करने का और उसको खत्म करने के लिए भी कोई भी ऐसा प्रयास हमें नहीं दिखाई देता, इंक्लूडिंग यू टॉक्ड अबाउट द निर्भया फंड, विच इज आजकल बड़ी चर्चा में है कि किस तरह से महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट ने उससे बोलेरो गाड़ियां खरीदी। और उसी तरह से ये सारा, तो ये पूरा एक खाका है, ये सिर्फ एक रिपोर्ट, एक रिस्पॉन्स टू क्राइम नहीं है, बल्कि पूरी महिला की परिस्थिति के बारे में एक तरह की स्टेटस रिपोर्ट है ये। और हमें लगता है कि सभी स्टूडेंट्स को इसको देखना चाहिए, इसको पढ़ना चाहिए, जो लोग इस बात को सुन रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये एक एनालिसिस है कि क्यों हिंदुस्तान के अंदर इस तरह के क्राइम बढ़ रहे हैं। लोग पूछते हैं हमसे क्यों बढ़ रहे हैं, तो बढ़ रहे हैं तो उसका जवाब इस रिपोर्ट के अंदर है कि क्यों होता है क्राइम, कैसे रोका जा सकता है, पनिशमेंट किस तरह का होना चाहिए। और जैसा कि फांसी और कैस्ट्रेशन वगैरह के खिलाफ हमेशा से महिला आंदोलन रहा है, आपने बड़े स्पष्ट रूप से उसको भी कहा। और फिर आपने ये भी कहा कि भाई रिस्पॉन्स के लिए आपको इस तरह की जेंडर बजट की स्कीम चलानी पड़ेगी, आपको महिलाओं के बीच में उनका सशक्तिकरण करने के लिए आर्थिक सशक्तिकरण करना पड़ेगा, उनके मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज को एड्रेस करना पड़ेगा। तो तमाम इन बातों को आपने रखा। अब मैं डॉक्टर वेरोनिका से कहूंगी कि अगर किसी के कोई प्रश्न है, प्लीज उस प्रश्न को आप चैट में लिखिए और पूछ भी सकते हैं आप। और उसके बाद डॉक्टर वेरोनिका, प्लीज टेक ओवर। है कि नहीं है डॉक्टर वेरोनिका?
Veronica is taking some time, so may I invite Professor Gyan Gului to please share some of his reflections.
Yeah.
And then Miniti Pradhanji. Yes.
Very much. I do not know whether I'm audible. I'm audible.
Yes,
I'm audible.
please go ahead.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Well, there will be, of course, very many things to do to say. I would say as regards the refusal of the death penalty, I found very many analogies between, for instance, our thinker Cesare Beccaria and the way in which you have argumented. For instance, there are very many relationships, in my opinion, analogies, in spite of the fact that I have the impression your argumentation is better than that of Cesare Beccaria. And well, I would need much time to explain why you, in my opinion, have formulated better the refusal than death penalty than Cesare Beccaria did to more or less 200 years ago. But I have found very many analogies. In particular, I think that Beccaria has a similar argumentation. He says, well, it is not legitimate for the state to apply the death penalty because it would be a repetition of something which is already be condemned as awful, as terrible. Therefore, the state may not have the authority of apply death penalty. But in my opinion, you have formulated better and more consequentially the refusal of death penalty than Beccaria did. So I would like to say this, and of course it was really very interesting, and I will have to pay much attention to all the points you have so brilliantly exposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other person who wants to say something?
Yeah, there is a question about in chat box. There is a question about what is the statistics of about marital rape. I think the only data we have, authentic data, is the NFHS 5, National Family Health Survey. They go by the definition of PVD, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, which defines domestic violence as a psychological, emotional, physical, sexual, and economic violence. In that, nearly 22% women have said that they have faced marital rape. No, but that is a survey. It's a sample survey, 25,000 household per state. That is it is not a census. So, but it gives the indication that it is in a very high proportion. So 1/5 of women in marriage have faced, and even women in the what is it called, live-in relationships, they have also faced.
And also that 1 in 3 women have reported having faced domestic violence.
Yeah, that is
every third woman
has
said that they have experienced domestic violence in the household.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, another question, Vibhuti, is one second. There's one more question which is saying, what steps can we take for the challenges faced by women in informal sector?
For what steps can we take? Yeah, challenges faced by women in I think informal sector, most important thing is formalized. Registration is very important. We have seen the crisis during the pandemic. They were even the whole discourse on migration. They were not even talking about women who were migrating. How much hardship they had to face for going back. Even in the reverse migration discourse, women were hardly in picture, and Ministry of Labor also did not have any data. First thing is that visibility of women in informal sector in statistics indicators, their registration, the 2008 Act we have, Social Protection and Social Security of workers in informal sector, which is the most violated act. I think that has to, that needs to be this thing. Different states have a different forms of sexual violence they have perpetrated and violation of reproductive rights. For example, Maharashtra has 3.7 lakh sugarcane workers who do seasonal migration, and the employers insist that they must get hysterectomized. Without hysterectomy, they will not get work in the sugar industry. So that has been taken up by the Mahila Kisan Mazdoor Sangatna. In Bangalore, women in garment industry, they have said that to maintain the production targets, because they are exporting garments, women are forced to take emergency contraception to postpone their menstruation. So this is also violation of their reproductive rights, and first time like they have got unionized at a shop floor level. So even asking for the retention of the labor legislation, 48 labor legislation, they should not be replaced by labor codes, because labor codes are only talking of male workers. Every whole language is he, him, and his. There is nothing about women. Even the question of sexual harassment at workplace is not mentioned in the labor code. That means you will have to go to criminal code if you are sexually harassed, which is so rampant in the informal sector. So I think we need to fight at various levels in terms of legal, better legislations, registration, e-registration, which is happening in a big way. So all informal sector workers should be registered so that they can get all the protection, whatever protective schemes are there with the state. Yeah.
Okay, the question is by Siddharth Kumar, if there is currently any law against marital rape. आपको मालूम है कि वर्मा कमीशन ने रिकमेंड किया था, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट ने उसको एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया.
लेकिन बहनें क्या करती हैं, वो DV Act का यूज करती है. So they said, because see, DV Act, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, has defined violence in 5 indicators: physical violence, मारना, ये करना, psychological violence, insulting this thing, the emotional violence, not allowing you to talk to your parents or to your friends or your neighbors, and economic violence, not giving you money to run the house, and sexual violence. So under this Powda Act, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, women file case in the family court and seek justice.
Okay, Varsha Surwade is asking, what is your view on Bilkis Bano case?
Bilkis Bano case, उनके साथ बहुत ही अन्याय हुआ है. She has been, there's tremendous injustice, even after having so many hardcore evidences and so many testimonies, so much of documentation, both video, audio documentation, and the documentation by the Human Rights and Women's Organization. The way this culprits have been scot free, it is eroded faith of women and girls from the justice system. बहुत बड़ी पैमाने में धोखा हुआ है, ऐसा बहनों को लग रहा है, क्योंकि इवन रूलिंग पार्टी की भी कई बहनों ने कहा है कि ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए था. जब प्रूवन केस है, जब आपके पास पूरे सबूत होने के बावजूद आपने उनके आरोपियों को छोड़ दिया, आप क्या मैसेज देना चाहते हैं? व्हाट आर यू कन्वेइंग टू द वुमेन ऑफ इंडिया? That men, they can commit any kind of heinous crime against women. Do you see Bilkis Bano as a woman, or you see only as a Muslim? If you see Bilkis Bano as a woman, insult to one woman is insult to women of India. ये हमें समझना चाहिए. उसको अन्याय हुआ है, हमारे सबके साथ अन्याय हुआ है. वो सिर्फ मुस्लिम है, इसीलिए आप मेजोरिटेरियन प्रोपेगेंडा करके उसका you can't crush her. She has been completely devastated. There is a lot of solidarity activities are happening in Gujarat as well as in India. But I think it is a tremendous injustice, grave injustice to Bilkis Bano. And उसके बाद उसकी अपील को नहीं लेना, वो भी बहुत बड़ा अन्याय है.
ठीक है, मैं मिनती प्रधान जी से कहूंगी कि वो अपनी बात कहें. उन्होंने मैसेज भेजा.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, I'm very thankful to be present in today's session. So it was very insightful, Vibhuti ma'am's and Ranjana ma'am's both deliberations. So just very humbly, I would like to add, in a social stage, we have to probably.
Sorry, we could not get your observation.
How to behave.
Minati, can you repeat it?
Hello. Yeah, I said in social level, our girls are doing fine, but we have to teach how our boys should behave. That is one point I would like to add. And I would like to ask the question, what can be done to know this cheap literature, the vulgaric songs, and the curbing all these things, what can be done? And one more thing, we find that there is some law and there is the reality in grassroots level. How to maintain that gap? I mean, whatever laws are there, everything does not get worked out while it comes to the victim. So please, can if you answer those things?
क्योंकि समय खत्म हो रहा है विभूति जी, बहुत ब्रीफली आप इनको जवाब दे
बस यही कहती है कि हमें सभी को इसके लिए काम करना पड़ेगा, सिर्फ महिला ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हम सब उंगली चीनने का काम करते हैं, मैडम ये भी कर डालो वो भी कर डालो। तो मुझे लगता है हम सभी एक नागरिक के, जागरूक नागरिक के तौर पे भी, जो कानून में जो भी हमें दिया गया है, हमारे संविधान ने जो भी दिया गया है, और जहां भी हम उसका हनन होता देखते हैं, वी हैव टू स्टिक आउट आवर नेक। आई थिंक दैट्स द ओनली थिंग, पीपल हैव टू रिस्पॉन्ड। ईरान का हमारे सामने एक्सपीरियंस है कि एक लड़की का जिस तरह से वहां की मॉडर्निटी पुलिस ने उस पर अन्याय किया, पूरा देश खड़ा हो गया, बच्चे से लेके बड़े। वही सेम थिंग वी विल हैव टू हैव। नारी शरीर पे अत्याचार नहीं सहेंगे, नारी शरीर नारी का हक, गैरों का वो अधिकार नहीं। आओ मिलकर दिखलाएंगे, नारी बाजारू चीज नहीं, मानवता पर है ये कलंक, हम नहीं सहेंगे, नारी शरीर पे अत्याचार नहीं सहेंगे। ये बात हम 1980 में जब हमने पार्लियामेंट का विमेंस चेन बनाई थी तब हम ये गाते थे। आई थिंक वो आज भी उतने ही सही है।
बिल्कुल। और बहुत सारे लोगों ने जवाब दिया, पूछा है, प्रश्न पूछा है कि कैसे क्या करना चाहिए कम्युनिटी में। जैसे सुभजीत मुखर्जी ने बोला है कि एज अ सोशल वर्कर हमको रेप के खिलाफ कैसे मोबिलाइज करना चाहिए। तो मैं आप लोग से सबको ये सुझाव दूंगी, समय हम लोग को 1 घंटे का ही था, तो मैं सुझाव आप लोग को सबको दूंगी कि आप अपने प्रश्न को ईमेल के जरिए भेज दीजिए, और जो हमारे पास है वो हम सब प्रश्नों का हम लोग आपको जवाब भेजेंगे।
और सीएसआर का पॉडकास्ट भी है ना अपने?
हाँ बिल्कुल,
सेंटर फॉर सोशल रिसर्च, यहाँ आप चैट बॉक्स में वो लिंक भी दी गई है।
हाँ हमने लिंक दिया है, जो हमारा पॉडकास्ट है उसको भी देख लीजिए, सुन लीजिए। और साथ साथ में आप लोग कोई भी प्रश्न होगा प्रोफेसर विभूति से, और मैं खासतौर से गौतम जी से आग्रह करूंगी कि इस तरह की चर्चा को करें, ताकि सब लोगों के जो प्रश्न है उनका जवाब भी हो और सबकी जानकारी का दायरा भी बढ़ेगा। और जब जानकारी होगी, समझ बढ़ेगी, तो शायद इन घटनाओं की संख्या भी घटेगी, क्योंकि हम सब लोग कलेक्टिवली, मेन विमेन पूछा आपने कि लड़कों का क्या रोल होना चाहिए, उनको तो शामिल होना ही पड़ेगा, वरना हिंसा तो उनकी तरफ से ही हो रही है, तो उसको तो रोकने के लिए उनको सामने आना पड़ेगा। तो इसलिए हम लोगों को बस इसके साथ ही, विभूति एनीथिंग लास्ट वर्ड यू वांट टू से?
लास्ट वर्ड यही है कि जहां भी हम हैं वहां हमें सबको संगठित करना चाहिए। ये सवालों को हमेशा जिंदा रखना चाहिए, इसको छुपाना नहीं चाहिए। जो भी होता है उसकी चर्चा, उसके बारे में लिखना, उसके बारे में चर्चा करना, उसके बारे में संगठित होना, यही सबसे बड़ा तरीका होगा ऐसे गुनाह को मुकाबला करने के लिए। ये मेरा आखिरी में।
Thank you. I think you've generated a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of, query. People are asking questions. There are a lot of questions in the chat box. You can also see them, but we can't handle it. So at this short period, so please, I hand it over to Mr. Gautam, and you can conclude this session. Thank you very much, Dr. Vibhuti Patel, for really energizing and giving us so much valid, valuable information.
बहुत धन्यवाद डॉक्टर रचना जी।
जी,
आज ये खुशखबरी की बात है कि हमारे साथ 200 से भी ज्यादा पार्टिसिपेंट जुड़े हुए थे, और ये आज तक का सबसे हाईएस्ट पार्टिसिपेशन है। तो ये जस्टिस वर्मा के लिए, और जो भी लोग जो नारीवादी सोच को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं या समाज में जो नारी के जो आवाज उठाते हैं, ये जन जागरूक, इसको देख के बहुत खुशी हुई है। बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी लोगों।
सही बात।
चलिए, बहुत बहुत सबका धन्यवाद, और थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर गिविंग me this opportunity, and also of course it's always pleasure to listen to Dr. Professor Vibhuti Patel. She is a treasure of knowledge, so we should always come back. Thank you very much. And with this,
आज निर्भया का 10वीं एनिवर्सरी है उनके निर्भया कांड की, और उसको बहुत ही अच्छी तरह हमने और प्रतिज्ञा की है कि हम इसके सामने हम तो लड़ाई, मैं और रंजना जी तो 50 साल से लड़ते ही आए हैं, लेकिन आप सब भी उसमें जुड़ जाएंगे तो बहुत अच्छा हो जाएगा।